Hi, I'm Jacqueline Isaacs, also known as the Unsmug Mum and jacquelineisaacs.co.uk, and today I am going to have a little talk about how the sort of tweaks and the sort of changed mindset that helped me lose my excess weight and is now helping me maintain for I think it's about the 5th week in a row now, and it feels effortless now, and I think it's because I've changed my mindset and I've really got it clicked up here about some of the things that we've been talking about. So just as a brief recap to get our brains in that zone, there are three main types, or there's three types of carbohydrate. There is sugar, there is starch, and there is fibre. Obviously we talked about fibre and how brilliant that is and where it naturally occurs, and we have talked about sugar. So far we've talked about glucose, where glucose comes from. I'll be doing further videos to delve into the other types of sugar we need to be thinking about, and basically I really went into starch and the idea that it's a polysaccharide, which basically means many sugars. So we can start to think about and understand starch being something that we need. We need our glucose. Remember what I said about glucose being G for glucose, G for great, G for gimme, gimme, gimme. Every bit of our body is designed to use it. It's our preferred source of energy. Our brain prefers it and will certainly give you a headache and scream about it if it doesn't get it. And so I am not anti-carb, but obviously we can learn a bit to help ourselves, because obviously us clever humans have taken something that Mother Nature has wrapped in the appropriate amount of fibre, because she knows starch is many sugars. Yeah, so she's treated it much the same way as she treated her naturally occurring sugars everywhere in nature, and she wrapped it with a thing that can help us, which is the fibre, which is our hairy porridgey plug holes, remember, and our sticks down a stream. Let me just swap hands because I can see I'm getting a little bit shaky already. Okay, and I'm going to keep holding this up here because I think this is the bit that we need to try and keep in our heads. Now, there have been plenty of programmes on TV. The most recent, I think, was on the BBC, was one of the doctors from the kids' Operation Ouch that they like. Sorry, Dr. Chris or Dr. Zand or whatever. And it's interesting that there always follows with these sorts of things a bit of a backlash on social media. And I do follow a couple of coaches, if you like, online coaches, and that. I haven't had individual coaching myself, but I'm always interested to see what these guys have to say. So what interests me is that the social media backlash, you get a lot of these other experts in the field that are really trying to be down to earth and keeping it real. And it always reminds me a little bit like your teacher who wants to be one of the cool kids and you know, be accepted by the kids by getting down with them, you know. Because you get this backlash that then, you know, you get this doctor, say, that's trying his best to tell us where it is that we could be going wrong overall, not individually. Actually, I think a lot of the manufacturing processes and marketing and money, they're the big guys that are at fault, and we are just trying to do our best in the best ways that we can within our budgets and our lifestyles. So I'm a big believer that it's not the individual's fault, but what we can do is we can learn a little bit to try and help ourselves muddle on through. And it interests me that you get then the social media backlash, the sort of being cool with the kids, in that you get the, oh, I'm not anti-carb, as I've said, I'm not anti-carb, in the sense of you can eat whatever you like still. Well, that's reality, guys. Let's educate ourselves. Reality is, if I carried on the way I was eating, I was slowly increasing my weight. When I was younger, my weight went up to 15 stone. I think I was around about a size 18 at the time before I was enough's enough and I started to lose weight. And my weight this time, it's currently hovering around the 10 stone 4 mark. I'm about 5'8", so that's absolutely fine for me. And I was going up, I think it was 11 when I very first started thinking, no, I'm not letting it, because I know how much hard work and how long it takes to lose that weight. And I think I got to the 11-11 stage where I was starting to struggle to fit in some of my clothes, and I started to think, I don't want to buy bigger sizes. I really don't, and I don't want to have to do that all over again, because I remember what it felt like and I didn't want to do it. So I've lost 20, just over 20, 21 sort of pounds mark, which is my excess weight, and I'm quite happy fitting in all my clothes again, which I'm really happy about. So I just, hello, there I am. I'm not just a face. Okay, and I did it by educating myself about the food I was eating. So as you see, I can keeping this up here because we really need to drill in our head, not being afraid of carbs, not being afraid of whole carbs as they appear in nature, but being a bit clued up what we have done to our man-made carbs. And see, the problem is, I just need to swap hands again, is that a lot of us, when we think of carbohydrates, and golly gosh, it's on the food pyramid, if we take a look at that, man-made carbs have made it onto the food pyramid. So it's not just, we're not being steered straight away, even as children, towards natural whole food carbs necessarily. We are being told that our starchy carbohydrates are man-made cereals, pastas, breads, etc. Yeah. As we've now learned a little bit about this dude, in that naturally occurring starches, a molecule of starch is a polysaccharide. It is made up of many sugars, many glucose sugars, which is great. But what we have started to talk about is how we have reduced down and concentrated those starches, removing the bulky Mother Nature packaging. That, let's think about it. I think it's Dove's Farm have got a brilliant bit on the history of bread and flour, for instance. You know, well, there's a big drive towards paleo grains are bad. I'm not sure I believe that I still eat grains that I can. We have been, I think it's Dove's Farm that says it's in the region of 23,000 years that we've been consuming grains in some form of bread. And the Romans certainly ate bread. The difference was it would have been incredibly hard work to chew because it would have had an awful lot of Mother Nature's packaging still in it. It would have been a lot firmer and harder and tougher on our teeth, I imagine, Roman bread. And you think of, in comparison, our bread now lovely and soft and spongy and light and floaty and could pretty much dissolve in our mouth. And that is because we have got rid of the bulky packaging, which not only has made it a lot faster to digest, not only that, we have done what I've called, and keep pointing us towards visualising what we do to fruit juice, where and smoothies and stuff, so forth like that, where we condense down, reduce, get rid of the bulky packaging and reduce down many fruits into a little glass full of juice. Yeah, and suddenly we can eat like way above what we would be able to eat in its whole food form, squeezed, condensed down and concentrated into a glass of juice. We've done exactly the same thing with our starchy carbs, and you think of things like flours, doesn't matter what flour it is, whether it's gluten-free rice flour, maize flour, potato flour, or good old bog standard wheat flour. It is concentrated down. And again, there was a link I shared that I found fascinating where they actually dove into the science and working it all out. And if you've got a nice organic loaf of bread where it's all going to be made up of the weight is mainly the natural ingredients rather than all the additives, which in itself is worrying if it's not an organic loaf, the amount of additives that must be weighing our bread down. So they specifically said it was an organic loaf so that they could take the additives out of the equation in terms of the weight of the 800 gram typical loaf of bread. And they worked out that it was roughly a whole square metre full of crops in one loaf of bread. So you just like try and comprehend how big a square metre worth of crops is in that little old loaf of bread that we can quite easily consume. And keeping this up here, remembering that starch is many sugars, just a molecule of starch is many sugars that dissolve and break apart into their simple glucose sugar form very easily with the addition of water in our spit, in our mouth. It starts to digest in our mouth. And then you bear that fruit juice analogy in mind and try and keep in our heads just what our man-made starchy carbohydrates have done. We've removed the bulk, we've concentrated, we've reduced down, concentrated it into things in a much smaller form, where we have got these starchy carbohydrates in a much more concentrated form that we can easily consume in things like pasta and bread and cereal and pizza bases and so forth. But it's also where it is hidden. So not only do we need to look at and address our portion size of maybe these starchy carbohydrates and think cleverly about our food combinations. So when you think, well, I still eat white rice, I had some at the weekend, I still eat bread products, I still eat processed man-made starchy carbohydrate. You know, I'm not aiming for shooting for perfection by any level. Good enough to me is good enough. Yeah, there's no need to go for this perfection out there, and that everything has to be a whole food and sugar free and all the rest of that. But obviously we do kind of, I personally wanted to lose some weight. If you're happy where you are, that's great, hats off to you. But obviously if we are struggling and trying to maintain or struggling to lose some weight, then obviously this sort of info can help us, because I'm a big believer in that if we were only told the why behind things and fully understand these things, it could really help us. So I'm just going to switch view now into some of the things that I've got on my kitchen table. As you might notice, I have a different backdrop than usual, so bear with me. Can I swap this? No.